I don't think the base is not as strong over here. Flare, I guess you could come around enough to just grab that flare right there.
Could you dig around the left side here to kind of see if the base flares out at all?
Yeah. Take that down to expose that. You're never going to get down below this, right? So in terms of the priorities for this piece of material, maximizing the movement that exists is at the center of our design concept. And there's just a little bit of a wobble in the movement through the middle here that takes away this singular C-shaped arc. And so showing that wobble and bringing that to the foreground is important. Strong base on the right here, making sure that this stays alive as a living vein and we keep this piece in the tree has to exist because we're pushing the tree so far to the left that we need that stability of the live vein on the right. And the base is beautiful here. We would not want to lose that and see that deteriorate. But we also have this really interesting live and dead interaction that already exists on this branch moving to the left. And if we take this out, which would be the natural assumption, we're going to open up such a large amount of negative space here that it's going to start to reduce the quality of the design. So we're going to start by trying to keep this in the design. Whether it stays over the long run or not, we'll see, and we'll kind of be malleable to whether or not we have to remove it. But for now, we know we absolutely have to keep this to maintain the live vein intact. We're seeing the best movement here, the best base, and we'll start to really kind of figure out how this integrates into the design. This stuff here. Now, just by doing that, it's already gotten so much smaller and starts to even fit proportionally in the design because now you can see that movement through it. Okay, so that's the first piece. Now I'm going to reduce the top. And the top, reducing the top, there's some fantastic lines that run through this. I'm going to utilize this portion right in here. I don't know whether it's going to be this branch or this branch that exists to the back that potentially might be a better angle of origination from the trunk for the apical region. But I know that I don't see a tremendous amount of value in this. It comes really far forward, kind of pushes you away from the design. And because the line and the movement through here is beautiful, I think we can create a really incredible piece of deadwood. There's also an area here that's super swollen, has a big, thick inverse taper. So we're gonna go ahead and cut and tear that out of the tree so that we don't have that flaw existing. And the use of deadwood is gonna help us fix that piece. The stopping point for me, it feels like it could exist in here, but this piece needs to have the capacity to really be strong and significant in the design. So I'm still unsure about this piece. I'm going to go ahead and leave it and just continue working through these other aspects. But this is a really wonderful transition to a much stronger structural piece here in the back. And I could see this potentially being an important piece for the design of the tree. So this is kind of where my thought process stopped. I'm just going to remove all this so we can see it a little bit better. Creating quite a bit of interest and value in that line. You can see there's some really wonderful deadwood there as well. The more we reduce this, the better.
Because?
The length that exists inside of this branch is extremely long. So when we start to look at the dynamic that exists between what potentially could be the defining branch over here and the length over here, they're competing to some degree. As opposed to shortening this, because this branch is inset in the trunk, to have this length means it has to be significantly longer than every branch on the tree. I could see pulling this back in, having this be quite short and compact, and having this be the long piece so that you reduce that visual length and you start to use this to guide the design. It makes more sense to me to do that. I'm going to remove this central piece here, yes. And this is going to create a nice little vein of deadwood. There's already some deadwood here that it can connect to.
Yeah.
But again, I'm going to utilize this vein to connect to the base right here to keep that piece alive. That extends into the soil mats here. So I'm gonna go ahead. I don't want this to be in the way of the design at all. So I'll go ahead and remove that. And now you can see that it opens everything up. Now you have two options here. You've got this piece that clearly has all the movement. You have this piece that's nice and tight and compact to the shape. We're probably gonna need to use a little bit of both of them. I'm assuming this one is gonna get pulled into here, fill this space, big move. But again, this is the one that has the living tissue we wanna really be considerate of. So that means that this piece in the back, I'm assuming has very little value, but I'm gonna keep this compact piece just in case something goes wrong.
Yep.
So let me go ahead and remove this part of it. See what we can make. It's very, very straight, so I doubt there's a lot of interesting deadwood that can come from this. The other parts of the tree have beautiful lines. This one, not so much. But you always want to give yourself the chance to be able to create something interesting in terms of deadwood. So the more wood you have, the more space you have to explore that creativity with deadwood creation. So after deliberating, because this is a process of just working through all the decisions, in a domesticated juniper like this, it's really tough to make that transition from the trunk look good. And both of these pieces need to exist because they're both extremely slender if we're going to use one or the other. The transition through this point right here into this thicker piece that gives us a much broader amount of foliar mass is going to give us a far better transition of the trunk line. And we've got to think, even though with a juniper we can cover up those transitions, it doesn't mean that you don't still have to think about that quality of that transition of taper. And so we're going to go ahead and we're going to further reduce these thinner pieces up on top back to the better transition. And this starts to establish all of our actions for the design, because then we're going to have to pull in, we're going to have to pull in here and close down the negative space that we open up. So you can see now how low the quality is in this piece and how insignificant it ultimately is in the structure. But you can also conversely see how important this piece is and how structurally significant it is. So this was a good decision to make the transition to here. This is going to form a far better movement through the living tissue. We'll pull this back into this region to take out that straightness and give it a little bit of movement back. And now you can see we're going to pull this piece into this space, since we've lost this point here, to fill in this location underneath this deadwood that we're now going to create.